Okay, this is a program called Smart Draw, and we're going to use this to design the pseudocode for an adventure game that you're going to learn how to create. What the pseudocode allows us to do is basically go in and lay out the code or lay out a project in a way that helps us decide how the game's going to flow. This is basically just an interactive game where the user presses a button. It's kind of like going left or going right. You either stay in the ship or you jump out of the ship. So and basically what we're going to do is we'll just call it adventure game. So we're going to use this right here, and we're going to call it adventure game. What this actually allows us to do too is this is Smart Draw. This is a grafting program like Visio or something like that that helps us lay out flow charts. It allows us to lay out organizational charts, things like that. So it's free to you can download it and use it for 7 days, and then after that you have to purchase it. And you'll notice that you can create PDFs, you can create export to Word, you can export to PowerPoint, and you can export this information to an Excel spreadsheet. For our purposes, we're just going to use it to create this adventure game. And what we have here is the adventure game. In fact, I'm going to rename this right here. I can put a text up here if I want. We'll just call it adventure game up here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to start the adventure game. And this game basically is a game that the ship's on fire and you have some choices to make. So what we're going to say is this is the burning ship. And in the burning ship you have two choices. You can put out the fire, or you can jump. And one way you jump, you get to jump. One way you select, you jump. The other way you put out the fire. Let's go this way. We're going to put out the fire here. We'll call this one put out the fire. And what this does is it helps us lay this out and gives us options. If we put out the fire, we're going to sink. We're going to actually lose. So we put out the fire. If we stay on the ship, we're actually going to sink here. So we're not going to win. We're actually going to put out the fire and we sink, and if we sink, what happens? Well, we lose. Okay? But if we jump off the ship, so this is going to be jump ship. We're going to have some other options. We're going to say we jump ship, and when we're in the water we see lifeboats on one place. So let's go here. We see lifeboats. We can swim to the lifeboats, or we can swim to the debris. So we'll say lifeboats, or swim, or debris. We'll just put debris. So that's lifeboats, this is debris. In fact, let's do this. Let's make these just a smidge bigger so we can see these better. And let's change the jump ship so we can see that one bigger too. Okay, and you can change these colors, you can add stuff, you can take it out. In this I'm going to go ahead and hit delete here. So you can see that in this leg, if they put out the fire, they sink and they lose. In this one we have jump ship, and you can swim to the lifeboats or you can swim to the debris. If you swim, let's say if you swim to the lifeboat, it's too crowded and you lose, because everybody's going to swim to the lifeboat. So let's do this. So they swim to the lifeboat. It's too crowded. Well, let's do this. Let's just call this lifeboat. And this one here is, I'm going to change that size now. It's too crowded. and you lose. But if you swim to the debris, let's get rid of that. We're going to call this the debris. You can, if you get to the debris, you'll get to shore, and you can rest and build a fire. So if you get to the debris, you can rest. Let's change that one more time too, that size. So you can rest. If you swim to the debris, you can rest and then get to shore and build a fire. Well, let's say get to the debris. You get to shore. Let's just say you get to shore. Let's change that. Get to shore, and you can either rest or you can build a fire. Let's make this a little bigger. So, in this case, you lose, so we're going to take that off. So if you go to the lifeboat, it's too crowded, and you lose. In this one, in the debris, you get to shore, you can rest, or you can build a fire. In this one, we'll do this as rest. You can build a fire and explore, or you build a fire and you keep trying. Okay, so in this one, when we do this, this is going to be our rested. We're going to build a fire. We're going to explore. So this one is after we've rested, we've got some options. So we're just going to say this is rested. Let's make that bigger. So after you've rested, you've got some options. Let's make this just a smidge bigger. You can build a fire, or you can explore the island. So let's make that just a smidge bigger. The thing with this is now we're going to have some options. We're not going to really be out here all by our own some lonesome. We're going to have some options here. We can build a fire, and that's going to take us into something else. This one, remember, was build a fire. So let's go ahead and change all this. There's got to be a better way I want to. Let's do this. I want to go ahead and change all this. We'll make this much bigger. That's way, way too hard to read. Okay, so this is build a fire. And then what are we going to do once we build a fire? Well, we have some options. In building a fire, it might go out, so we have to keep trying. So that's one of our options you might want to give them. So what we're saying is if we build the fire and it goes out, we have to keep trying. In this one, after we're rested, we have two options. We can build a fire or we can explore. So let's put some lines in here too, by the way. Here's my line. So I want to go from here to here. And on this one, I'm also going to put another line because I'm going to go from here, grab my line again, and we're going to take the option of building a fire. Because remember, we're not always going to be successful. So we can, and then this is going to be our build a fire too. So rest, we can see where we're getting the rested here, and we've got the build a fire here. Now on this, we've got, if we're successful, if we want to go out and explore, we want to show that. What's going to happen if they go out and explore? So let's do that. Okay, so we've got build a fire, and here's build a fire. So we have two options. We're going to give them, now you can start to see how we're starting to kind of get a circular pattern here. So we go to get to shore, They can either rest and build a fire. If they build a fire, they go back to here, and the fire keeps going out, and they keep trying. Okay? And the only other option once they get to here is keep trying. So we're going to build a fire, and we're going to keep coming back and building another fire here. Let's try this. Add one more line. And get back into this circular pattern, because if it builds a fire and it goes out, we keep trying. Build a fire, goes out, we keep trying. So now they get into this circular pattern that they can't get out of. However, after they're rested, if they explore, then they get another option out. So as you can see, if you go in to build a fire, it's going to be this circular thing, and they're going to get stuck there. We don't give them an option to be successful in building a fire, so we've got this circular pattern happening. Okay, so if they go out and explore, one of the things they can do is find supplies. So we'll label this option find. We can say supplies. When they've found the supplies, they have two options. They can either build a shelter, somewhere to protect them, or they can go hunting with the supplies. Maybe they can find something to eat. So now we have two dog legs that go out. Okay, so now we've got to set up the dog legs because we've got to have some options. Now, remember this keep trying, build a fire is just circular. We're not going to get anywhere with that. But we can use this one over here in building the supplies. And what we can do now is we can build a shelter and then make a signal. So once we've built a shelter, we can make a signal. We see a ship, we can swim out. We can add another shape here. What we'll do is we'll just put another one right there. And in this one we can say in here, we want to put some text. And in this, remember we were talking about if they went hunting. Well, if we go hunting, we can find a wild pig, and if we go hunting, we have a couple of options. We can tackle, or the pig runs away. We tackle the pig, or the pig runs away. If we miss the pig, the supplies are gone, and we lose. On this option, if we come in here, let me go in here and get this for you. In this option, after we build the shelter, we can look for the ship, make a signal, swim out. If we drown, we lose, and if we are rescued, we win. So we've got some options here. It's going to take me, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go back, I'm going to pause the video, lay out my options, and then I'll explain more about what we were doing here. But I want to make some room here because I'm running out of room here with my panel. So I want to make some room so that my supplies, I can see my contacting the ship after I build my shelter, or I can do the hunting option. So I'm going to pause the video. When you come back, I'll have everything laid out, and we'll talk about that. Okay, so what I've done is I've laid out the rest of the pseudocode. So let's review our pseudocode. Here's our adventure game. All right. Let's do this. Let's make this just a smidge bigger. This is our adventure game. And all this is going to be a click-based game so that the user comes in and they're given a scenario. They're on a burning ship and they have two options. They can put out the fire or they can jump. If they put out the fire, it sinks and they lose. But if they jump ship, they have two options. They can swim to the boat or swim to the debris. If they swim to the boat, it's too crowded, they lose. The game's over. If they swim to the debris, they get to shore and they have two options. They rest or they build a fire. If they rest, they get two options, which is build a fire or explore. If they go and build a fire, the fire goes out, they keep trying. So we have this cyclical thing that just keeps them going back and forth and back and forth, and they can never get out of this cyclical event. If they go back and they build a fire, or if they're rested and they go back and they build a fire or explore, if they choose explore, they find supplies and they have two options. They can build a shelter or they can go hunting. If they go hunting, they find a pig. If they find a pig, they have two options. They can tackle the pig or the pig runs away. If they tackle the pig and the pig runs away, they lose, and they lose their supplies. If they tackle the pig and they miss, they lose. So either way, they lose with both of those options. In fact, we should put this right here. We'll go right to there, and that'll give us the lose, because the supplies are gone and they lose automatically. So if they go build a shelter, they go look for a ship after they've built the shelter, and one of the options is when they see the ship, they make a signal or they swim out. If they swim out and they drown, this should be drown right here. If they swim out and they drown, they lose, okay? If they swim out and they're rescued, then they win. So what happens is we give them options. And again, putting out the fire, they lose. Jumping ship saves their life. And once they jump the ship, it takes them through these options here, the lifeboat or the debris. And of course the lifeboat's too crowded, again they lose. What we've done here is laid out the pseudocode so that we can see how we want the game to progress. If you had other options, you could throw them in there. If you had another leg that you wanted to take, or another way that you wanted them to take, maybe they go in the jungle and they find a tribe who feeds them, shows them a way off the island. You could have that as another option and detail it. But as you can see in the way we have this laid out, this is how we're going to build the adventure game. So this is pretty simple. So all we have to do then is build a series of screens with buttons. And the button is put out the fire or jump ship. If they choose the jump ship option, it takes them to a new screen, and they have two more options. Do you swim to the lifeboats or do you swim to the debris? If they choose lifeboats, then this is their option. If they choose debris, if they push the debris button, then it takes them to these sets of options, and so on and so forth. So this is pseudocode that we lay out the game, and you're going to do this a lot. Once we've laid out pseudocode, we'll move on to storyboards when we're actually designing a game. But this gives you a pretty good idea of how to lay out a pseudocode for your games. So you really want to think through. Remember, we've got the main character, and they've got a dilemma. Once they've faced the dilemma or faced the challenge, we have a resolution after that. So we've got the character, we design the dilemma, and then we design the solutions. Remember when we talked about in the previous lecture, we talked about building screens, and they have the opening screens, the main screen, and then from the main screen you have instructions, then you have your gameplay, and then when the gameplay is over, you have the ending screens. You either win or you lose. And if you either option, you can give them the opportunity to play again. And here, if we hit win, we can have them play again. But it's pretty senseless considering they probably know all the options. When they lose, though, especially early on in the game, you want to give them the option to play the game again, start over. And then that takes them back to the burning ship, and they will probably pick these options. And if they pick the wrong option, they'll lose, okay, and time out and go back and start all over again until they finally figure out how to win the game. So this is pseudocode, and this is how you'll construct the adventure game. The next tutorial will be actually building the adventure game in Flash. So if you have any questions, email me, give me a call, or come by and see me during my office hours.